Hey, this is Dave and Rich again at housebearings.com. And as you can see, we have some medium-sized holes here that need to be repaired. We're going to show you how to go about doing any of these and making it just good as brand new. Okay, so here's what you're going to need for this repair. You need a piece of drywall, just a little bigger than the hole that you're going to make. This is going to have to get cut out so we can put a patch in there. I got some scrap pieces of wood. I'll show you what those are going to be used for in just a little bit. Got a new blade, new box cutter blade, and a drill with drywall screws. And this you don't have to have. It's a multi-tool, oscillating tool. It's super convenient for things like this, but you could just use a blade or some kind of drywall cutting saw to cut this out. So here's what we want to do. This is our hole, and this has been ruined as it got peeled off. And so you have a paint lip right here, and then this is paper that tore, the drywall facing that just tore off. We don't have to cut all this out because the drywall mud, when we apply it, will take care of that. But we definitely need something about this big so we can get from here to where this hole is, something like that. We need at least a piece that big so that we can get started. So we have a scrap because we have just tons of scrap laying around. You didn't have to buy a brand new sheet of drywall. You can go to the big box stores and usually have discarded, broken pieces that you can buy dirt cheap. And usually they're 2 foot by 4 foot or something like that. But yeah, it saves you from having to go and wrangle a whole big sheet of drywall for a repair like this. Okay, what we're going to do, I don't need this whole piece. I think we can do something a little smaller. And so what we're going to do is put this about something like that will work out nice. And so I'm just going to ballpark that cut. And I just need a straight edge. I can use one of these scrap pieces of wood. And again, I don't have to be real precise with this because this is the patch. So the patch is what everything else is going to be designed towards. The blade, all you have to do when you're cutting a piece of drywall is to cut through this layer of paper here and maybe just a little bit into the actual gypsum. But you don't have to cut all the way through it. You basically are creating a weak spot. Don't cut your leg. And then, now that you just cut a weak spot, it breaks on that weak spot. So there you go. It's broke. And you come to the back side. And it's that easy to get your piece. This one here. Okay. So that's the drywall patch piece that I'm going to use. That could even be smaller than that. Alright, something like that. Alright, now that I got my patch piece, what I want to do is just simply trace it. Because this is where we're going to outline our patch. And now all I'm going to do is cut that out so my patch fits in there just perfect. And that should just come right out. Easy as pie. And then our patch fits in there. Now, the patch fits, but I have got no support here. And this is something you always got to be careful. I could see this wire here, so I knew where it was. But don't put your saw too deep into any pocket till you know what's behind there. Anyway, this is good, and we can attach this side of the drywall to this little thin board. That's not going to provide a whole lot of support. So we need something back here to do it, to provide support. So I just literally picked up just any old scrap piece of wood that we're just going to put just like that. And that will be our back for our drywall repair. That's why it's nice to have a bunch of scrap wood laying around. Because you never know when it's going to come in handy. So I basically just started those 2 screws. And now I want to put in my waste piece of wood. And then we're just going to screw into it. And the goal of this is really just to provide a bit of backing to hold this as we mud it and it dries. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to screw into this board, and on this side into this board, and we'll have our patch in. We're using 1 1/4 inch drywall screws. You can get them 1 1/4 or 1 5/8 are the common, but this is enough to get through the piece of drywall and into the wood without going, deep. And they're made, these are coarse thread, they bite pretty well. And you tighten, you drill the screw till it just starts to indent the paper. You don't want the screw head exposed. All right, now what's needed is to tape these seams and apply a coat of mud on this, and you'll be good to go. Let's go get the mud. All right. Okay, we've got our drywall mud, and you can get this in a powder form, or you can get it pre-mixed. You can get it small pails or big pails. We got this because we're going to be doing a lot of this. But put a little bit on your blade, and it's like the consistency of peanut butter. And you just go over the area, your new, scrape that off. You want to get rid of any of these stragglers. And so we're going, basically I'm just providing like a bed for the seam tape or the drywall tape. Something for it to stick to. And again, not super thick, just enough to do the job. And in the perfect world, you want this to be as smooth as possible. The smoother it gets, the less sanding you're going to have to do. One thing about this is it's very forgiving in that it's hard really to mess something up badly. But the problem is if you don't put this mud on fairly smooth, you could be sanding for a long time. So it's a trade-off. Okay, now that we've got our seams ready for tape, then we're going to put this tape on. And again, I just tear this off to about that much. It's fairly imprecise. Then I have a bucket of water here, and I just literally just drip it in the water just so it gets a little bit moist. It helps keep air bubbles from being an issue. And the wet tape sticks to the wet mud. So we'll do that again. About that much. And then I'll do both those sides. I'm going to put just a thin layer over that tape. Just the thinnest amount, nothing huge. And you got to be careful because this tape can move on you while you're applying this thin layer. And again, we're going to go over the second coat later on. So all you're doing is really seating the tape in the mud bed, and then we'll let it dry, and we'll have to come back with the second coat later. And now we're going to do the top two. And what this tape does is it prevents cracks from showing up later on. So you wouldn't have to put the tape on, but you may be sorry down the road when it starts to dry. So it's worth the extra effort to do it right. Okay, now put a little more on that. All right, and that's probably good enough for the short run. Now this right here is where the paint and top layer of paper tore from the original drywall. So we'll just correct that by adding a little thin layer of mud over it. And again, it's not super imperative that this all be completely smooth. But the smoother it is, the happier you'll be in the long run. But any imperfections we can sand out later on. All right, there you go. That's a repair if you don't have support in that repair. But that's rock solid. All right, so now we've got our mud on there. We put our tape on there, then a little thin coat of mud over that. We're gonna let that dry and set up. Then we're gonna come back and add we'll use a thicker blade the next time and come across here like this, and even with the second coat, make this smoother than this is. Let that dry. Then we're gonna come back and sand it all down, and the goal is to have it perfectly smooth so that when you run your hand over this drywall piece, you don't feel any ridges. You can't feel that you're actually there. If you can run your hand over the sanded drywall and you can't tell that you were actually there, then it's smooth enough to prime and paint. If you find out you still have ridges, go back. You can add another layer of mud on this till it gets as smooth as any other wall in your house. Once it's all sanded and smooth, then you're good to prime and paint. Now, next we have these two holes. And repairing these is very much like this, only we already have support. Now, this is a judgment call. I'm going to guess that when I cut my patch here, that just anchoring it here, this is on a slanted part of the ceiling. No one's going to ever touch this area. I'm going to screw drywall screws into this board. My guess is that piece won't move a lot. If you find out that the piece is real easily deflected, then you got to put another board across there to keep it stiff. But on this one and this one, I think all I got to do is cut my patch, screw it in there, and you're good to go. Hope this helps with your drywall repairs. If these holes are too big and you're looking for something that's a little smaller, see our previous video. And we've got one more video coming up on hanging full sheets of drywall. We have a lot more home renovation videos coming out. Please subscribe. If you like any of this, we would appreciate likes as well. See you next time. Thanks for viewing.